Hey guys, how's it going? Welcome to another one of these Fireside Friday Chats. If you're here live, cool. I appreciate you being here. If you're going to catch this on the replay, thanks for doing that too. Today, I have somebody who I've been watching for quite some time now, and frustratingly, he's catching up on subs very quickly because his content is perfect. And we've been talking for quite a while, become friends, and I wanted to have him on the channel for quite some time. So how's it going, Ben? This is Ben from Books with Benghis Kahn. How's it going, man?
Oh, thanks, Theo. It's going great. This is why I got onto BookTube, is to just have more of these chats. And I was watching
Cool.
it for years and years, and you're like, oh, it'd be fun to actually have some of those chats and get in on Alan's Book Jeopardy. And so
Yeah,
yeah, this is why
absolutely.
I did it. Yeah.
Cool, man. So what's on that topic? I guess we'll just start. I'm curious, like what the story is. You said you've been lurking in the booktube community for you
Oh, for
said a
years.
number
Yeah.
of years, right? So
Yeah. Yeah.
how did that happen? What a lot of people popped on around the pandemic, and sort of did it. We went through the rabbit hole of books and finding that love again. Were you just browsing the community for years before that, or what? How did it
Yeah.
happen?
Yeah. So it goes back. I mean, I was a giant fantasy fan as a kid, just with the Harry Potter books. Like, but it was
Yeah,
so weird.
sure. Yeah,
I was a Harry Potter fanatic,
my
but
wife was too.
yeah,
Me less
I was
so,
just a
but
big,
yeah,
it was everyone around me at
yeah,
school and my summer camp. Like, I remember grade 4 or maybe grade 5 when book 4 came out, Goblet of Fire, and everyone,
yeah.
including me, is taking this giant brick with me to summer camp in my summer camp bag, and everyone else had it.
Yeah.
I just grew up with that, and I was just such a big dum dum, thinking that I was just a Harry Potter fan, or that I loved the
Right.
Lord of the Rings films growing up, and I'm just like a Lord of the Rings movie fan.
Right. Right.
It didn't occur to me that I might love this genre that these
Right.
are from, or that the Lord of the Rings spawned.
Yeah.
And so I just had a lot of hobbies growing up, like watching sports and watching a lot of TV and movies. And I was just, the reading was just Harry Potter and being a fanatic with that. And then in college, I was doing a lot of nonfiction reading, and just, it was until after college I started to get into just reading fiction for fun. But
Yep.
it didn't occur to me to check out adult fantasy. Like, it wasn't even a thought. Like,
Yes.
I was like, oh, I'm an adult now. Like, I'll go for the serious lit fiction,
Yeah.
or maybe some of the golden age sci-fi, serious stuff. Like, it didn't even occur. I didn't look out for recommendations. I just felt like, oh, I'm going to try lots of famous authors that I've heard about over the years. And it was not until I found adult fantasy again. It was years after I graduated college, maybe in 2018, where a
Wow.
buddy of mine that I grew up with, he was also a big Harry Potter fan with me, but he never stopped reading fantasy. He actually went on to Dark Tower and Song of Ice and Fire,
Mm-hmm.
and Sanderson, and he basically forced me to read Mistborn after I rejected it
Yeah.
once. And I was like, what is this ash falling from the sky stuff and ska? And like, oh, this is not my jam.
Yeah.
Uh, and eventually he forced me to try it, and I gave it a proper try. And I just absolutely fell in love with it. It was just sped through that whole trilogy. And then the rest of Sanderson's Cosmere books that were out. And I was like, oh my God, I've been missing out on this for so many years. I was
Yeah.
such a big stupid head that I knew nothing. I knew nothing about the genre. I didn't know about Wheel of Time, didn't know about anything. And so I was just getting recommendations from him, but then I started going on Sanderson forums, like the
Mm-hmm.
17 Shard forum, to
Mm-hmm.
check out, like, oh, what are Sanderson fans reading, and trying to get other recommendations. And that's how I found some of my other immediate favorites, like Temeraire or the Magician's trilogy, or Dresden
Nice.
Files. And that's when I also started trying to find more recommendations, and found BookTube. Like in 2019, probably I started watching Daniel Green,
Oh yeah. Of
and
course, as we all
and
did, probably. Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
He
And
popped up.
so he was like the one booktuber I was watching, and he was just the gospel on
Yeah.
fantasy.
Yeah.
And then I was trying to read some of his recommendations, and I ended up with some success, like First Law, huge hit with me,
Yeah.
loved it. But then I tried another one of his recommendations, Poppy War,
Uh huh.
less of a hit, and then
Yeah.
Lightbringer, and that one didn't go very well. And I'm like,
Uh
oh,
huh.
maybe Dana Green is not just like the holy gospel of fantasy, and I have my own reading identity that I can sort of carve out. And so I started to just look for more booktubers, like found
Yeah.
Mike's book
Yeah.
reviews, and eventually found Jimmy and Alan, and then they became my kind of core booktube people, where I
Yeah.
felt like their tastes were more aligned with mine. And then
Yeah.
then it just exploded. And then during the pandemic, so many more channels coming up, and
Yeah.
and then watching more recent ones like your channel and Tall Guy Reads, and just so many channels like Jake Bishop, another one, Kyle, read by Kyle, and I was like, I want to join the fun.
Totally.
I'm not too into the analytical side of it. I don't want to be a critical book reviewer. I find doing too much of that kind of saps the just like sheer enjoyment and immersion I get out of this hobby. But
Yes. I agree. So I had kind of a similar story, and I'll just jump in and just say, like, I kind of fall into the same trap of, not the same trap, but I like to consider this a hobby. I like to consider this just fun, but you get that pressure, and you fall into a little bit of the trap of like the analytics, and people start talking about views and this and that and whatever and subscribers, and like it's easy to get kind of roped into that and start making content, or even worse, reading books specifically for the channel or to target some sort of outcome, which I don't think is the purpose of it. So I'm very cognizant of slipping down that slope of like, am I still having fun? Like, am I hitting record because I feel like it today, or am I like just trying to get something done? So you're creeping up. You're at almost 1,300 subs at the time of this recording. And so how's that going? Like, are you like you said, are you keeping watch? Like, are you just kind of chilling and whatever happens? Or are you like, oh yeah, like 2,000 can be around the corner if I do things right? Does that matter to you at this point, now that you've grown a bit? Like
a little. I was so just
like, who cares
unsure of how it would go.
Yeah.
Like I thought it would be just, I don't know, everyone says this, but I really thought it would be just like a couple subscribers, a couple views per video. Like I'd be mostly just making like a video diary for myself.
That's what I thought.
Yeah. And I was like, okay, if that's all it is, like I get to articulate my thoughts, kind of record a video diary or journal, like that'll be fun.
Yeah.
And if anyone sees it, like whatever. Like it was surprising just to even get, a few subs and then a few hundred, and just, once, and it's the weirdest thing though, like once that became a norm where like videos would get over 100 views, or I crept towards 1,000 subs, I started to think about it all a little differently. Like I felt like I was under a bit more pressure. Maybe like some audience members that were following, and like now I have to actually think about the channel. And
so that's what happens. Is it's not that you start thinking, I can only speak for myself, but it's not that you start thinking about like the subs and the thing and being like, oh cool, it'll be nice to reach these. It's now people seem to give a shit about what I'm saying. So maybe I should be more careful, or add a little bit more value, or take some more time with stuff, or put stuff out that I know that these people are going to want, or recommendations that I've gotten for video ideas or whatever, right? Now you're starting to cater to a little bit of a following, which is a weird feeling. Like I remember crossing 1,000 and being like, what? Like I remember being so stoked about 100. And I did a small giveaway for 100, and I was like, this is amazing. Like, people are actually watching stuff. And I just wanted a little bit of a community to be able to talk to. Like the comments is my favorite place to be. I love responding to comments and hearing criticism, good and bad, and all that stuff, which so far I've been very lucky. Have you had any weird comments? Have you been pretty lucky? What do you think about the community so far?
Now? It's been great. It's been great. Just a lot of repeat commenters and people being very positive, even with pretty, I'm low tech here and don't do a lot of flashy edits and whatnot. So like, it's been overwhelmingly positive. Like the occasional strange comment, but I don't think I've gotten big enough where I'm getting a lot of, randos popping in. So it's been mostly just people that just are super positive and engaging with me on the book stuff. And, after a wrap up, telling me what they've been reading. And that's been great. Yeah. I love that aspect of it.
So the coolest thing that happened to me, and again, I'm at 1,600 something subs. So we're talking small channels, you and I, right? And I think we started around the same time. Maybe we'll get back to that. I think you've creeped up quite quick actually. But it started off as like the coolest thing that happened to me, even at this count, is when people message me privately to be like, oh, like I bought this book because you recommended it and I'm loving it, or I'm not, or whatever. But usually it's like, I'm loving it, thank you so much. Or, oh, I saw you reading this, like I'm going to read it too, and maybe we can talk. People reading something because I'm reading it, or reading something to try something because I've recommended it or guided them to something, or maybe they liked what I said about it. Somebody just messaged me the other day, actually yesterday. She's reading The Road by Cormac McCarthy, and that was the last review that I did. I felt compelled to do something for that because I was so moved by it.
Yeah.
And I felt like sliding it into a wrap up wasn't quite warranted. So I did a separate review and I loved it. And I think I gushed a little bit about it and went in depth a little bit near the end and talked spoilers. And she's like, I'm loving this. I'm like almost at tears. And she told me a couple parts where she's actually a patron as well. A couple parts where she was, you know, very emotional. And she's like, thanks for, you know, putting this on my radar again. Obviously she had heard about it. So that's really, really cool when stuff like that happens. So when did when did you start your channel? Remind me.
It was in the around summer of last year, so just I'm less than a year old.
Yeah, so my year will be in April next month. So you're a few months after me, so that's awesome. Very cool.
Pretty class of 2022.
2022, that's right. Yeah, streaming is really cool. I didn't think that I would be, hey Tori, how's it going? I know you got some stuff going on. I didn't think that this would be a thing that I would do or enjoy. Like, I like talking to people. I like being social. It's why we have the Discord. Shameless plug for the Grimoire Discord, but boom. But yeah, it's like I enjoy that part, but I didn't think streaming would be part of this book thing. Like I thought it would kind of just be videos, reviews, discussions, whatever. And when I started seeing people doing the stream stuff, I'm like, wow, this is an opportunity to like and what happened was I started really enjoying watching them. And I was like, people actually like this.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
I've been there for every single one of Jimmy's Friday night live streams pretty much. Yeah. Like I just love those. I've been loving those for so long now. And now it's been catching on with so many channels. So it's just become a huge thing.
It is. It's really cool. And actually we're gonna start something kind of neat coming up here with a couple guys. I think it's probably just going to be RJ and Alex for now. And it might evolve into including one or two other people here and there, because every so often I want to chat with more people at once. So these are amazing and intimate and I love them. But I'm like, there's so many people I want to talk to and I can't work my way through everybody. And also there's, you know, one-on-ones with other people. You've been on like, you know, Philip Chase's channel and other people. And so I don't want to kind of, you know, duplicate that kind of stuff. So so we're going to have something kind of neat come up where we're going to invite random people on, and it's going to be a little bit of a different context. I think that'll be fun. So I'm always looking for things like that keep it fresh, because I enjoy this stuff. And I watch Jimmy Nuts is chatting with Nuts all the time, and he does a really good job and has different people on all the time. Alan every other time, but you know, whatever. Jane was saying that she found you on Alan's Jeopardy game. Oh,
that was a blast. Yeah. I loved that. That was one of the reasons I wanted to get on BookTube. I'd been watching the Jeopardy for a while. I love quiz shows, Jeopardy. Been watching Jeopardy for my whole life. And so I just squeaked out a victory there against Philip and Kyle. And so you're supposed to go on Jeopardy next with the Grimoire guys, right?
We're supposed to. It's supposed to be.
You got to do that because then I'll be facing off against the winner and Michael Nipp, I think. So we gotta get that going.
That's gonna be difficult. I'm going to call it right now, live. It's not going to be pretty. I'm going up against, I think it would be RJ. I don't think Baron will be around, but I think it'll be RJ and Alex. And I can't remember who else. I don't know if you mentioned it, but I don't know who else. The fact that Alex is on it basically guarantees that I'm going to lose. And RJ, I'll probably just, you know, lose to him just to be nice. So I'm going to lose for sure, 100%, because the things that these people have read, and as smart as Alex is, and as much knowledge and stuff as RJ has about kind of all different things, like he'd be able to synthesize so much info to give an answer. I just won't be able to do it.
Oh no, don't sell yourself short. If it's a close game, all you need is to be within catching distance in Final Jeopardy, and who knows what'll happen.
Right. We'll see how it goes. I don't know. I'm excited. I love Alan's channel. He's a really good buddy, and I can't wait. That'll be sweet. Have you started A Storm of Swords? So let's do this real quick before we jump into that. So what are you reading right now?
Oh man, I don't even have it with me because it's a struggle, but I have. So this goes back to the booktube thing. So here's my nice I think book club edition of Storm of Swords. I found this whole set at a used bookstore, and they're in mint condition around here. Love that. but I just used to binge series. Like for my first 3 years.
We will talk about that
of reading. Yeah,
because I'm different. I can't.
I would binge fully. Like I binged the Cosmere, all 9 books of Temeraire, read within 2 weeks.
Jesus,
and then
you read The Expanse real quick.
Oh
right?
yeah, The Expanse.
Like,
but even then, like I felt, since I was in the midst of this growing channel, that like even doing a month of just Expanse, I didn't even finish the series, but I did it all in December, and I felt like I just can't keep going. Like I should read more variety for the channel. So I took a month
there you
break.
Go back to the channel, right? I should
Yeah.
read a little bit different stuff, right, for the channel. But
So, and that was fine. It was just a month break, but I was so like, I think the reads that I did in between the middle of The Expanse actually suffered because I was just wanting, I think, to get back to that story and finish it out.
Yeah.
And so I absolutely loved Game of Thrones. It's the weirdest thing. I picked it up when I was in a really busy time in the fall, when I was like, I want something. I've seen the show that I was like, that was not going to take up too much of my time, that I could just read like sparingly in my free time.
Mm-hmm.
And I got sucked into a Game of Thrones. Did not expect to love it that much. It was my first time.
Same.
Yeah, just got completely sucked in. It turned out to be a huge procrastination vehicle for me, and I was hoping it would be like the opposite, since I had known what the story was going to be, I thought. Yeah. And then I saw this other big read along happening too, so I wanted to kind of catch up with that. And so I read A Clash of Kings last month and loved it.
Yeah.
Just absolutely loved it. And then I was so into Song of Ice and Fire that I went for a Fire and Blood next. And I loved that.
I saw that you did that.
Loved
and
it.
Actually, I was at the bookstore the other day, and I almost bought Fire and Blood because, correct me if I'm mistaken, but you said you read it in between, and like it doesn't matter if you pick it up. So what I was going to do was, now I wasn't going to prioritize that over the rest of the series because I don't read as fast, so I'm just going to get through the series first. But part of me wanted to almost fit that in concurrent with the rest of it.
The art throughout here is just spectacular.
I know.
I
didn't know there was art until I saw you
Aegon the
hold it up.
Conqueror and his two sister wives who conquered Westeros.
That's awesome.
The first Targaryen conquers Westeros. So like, I also just, Martin has been continued to surprise me because I feel like I often like being surprised. I often like to know absolutely zero about books going in. And so I feel like I know so much of what's going to happen through the show that it wasn't going to suck me in, but it totally has. And I've been loving the books. And Fire and Blood was all new stuff. So that was really just gripping and fun, because I also like the House of the Dragon show. So I was really interested to see how that was going to play out. Yeah.
I'm saving that show. I haven't tried it yet. And I think what I'm going to do is read the series first, maybe read Fire and Blood, and then watch the show, just because I don't have time to watch too much. And so I'd like to keep something on deck to watch. A lot of other people are loving A Song of Ice and Fire, a lot of rereads. That read along is really cool. So Clash of Kings took me into March just a little bit because it's fat, and I was busy, and so right now I'm reading Ship of Magic as well as Jade City. So that's kind of what I'm reading now, and I'm saving Storm of Swords as soon as I'm finished one of these, which is probably, I don't know, Jade City's short, about half as long, and it reads real quick. Ship of Magic, I'm in the last 30% ish. So we'll see which one I finish first.
You're reading some big boys in the genre, some heavy hitters. Like one of the things that we felt like we just came to adult fantasy like a little bit late in the game. Like I should have been discovering, the 80s and 90s stuff when I was a teenager, like graduating from Harry Potter. And now I feel like I just am behind and needing to catch up, and I'm needing to catch up on the stuff, the older stuff and the newer stuff. And there's so many like really prominent things in the genre. And I've had good luck with a lot of the popular things that have really been a big hit with me. So I've just been trying to make my way through all this popular stuff. But now I'm exposed to so much through Discord and BookTube that my TBR is like 10 years long, and it's like well-known stuff. I want to read new releases now. So all this to say, I now am trying to read more variety with the channel. And right now I was reading A Tyranny of Faith, book 2 of with Richard Swan, The Justice of Kings.
I have Justice of Kings, and I remember you talking about Tyranny of Faith, and that you liked the first one a little bit more. I don't want to put words in your mouth. It grew a little bit, and you liked the more contained, intimate story, small town feel.
But
I wonder how I don't know.
I'm almost certain that I would love a Tyranny of Faith if I had read it right after Justice of Kings.
That's what
like
you
I
said.
was
That's
I
right.
was all about Justice of Kings. I was into the first person retrospective kind of narrator. So you get one POV, kind of this older character, just like Hadrian and Sun Eater narrating back the story, or and so I was into the characters and the narrator. I was into the world, the setting, the plot, and now I picked it up to try to keep up with the new release. And it's been like a year since I read book one, so I'm like, okay, the longer I wait, the longer I'm gonna feel disconnected from book one. And I didn't want to reread book one because I have so many books to get to that I feel like I can't just like reread something I read a year ago. And so I was just not getting into it like I was with the Justice of Kings. And I think the writing quality is the same. Like not much has changed. And it's more just, like when preference? I'm reading it. And I think maybe the kind of plot that it's expanding into, but that might just be me trying to find a reason why it's not working when it's really just that I was wanting to read this guy. And so I was in the middle of a Tyranny of Faith, but like I just couldn't help myself. I started a Storm of Swords. So to answer all of this, to go back to Alex's question, I have started a Storm of Swords. I'm like probably 15% of the way in and loving it. And now it's really, really hard for me to pick up Tyranny of Faith. And like I'm in the middle of that now, and I'm just like, oh, now it's gonna be like a struggle. And I don't like to DNF things. I like to get closure. And so this never would have happened when I was just in my binging mode. So I wasn't even picking up new releases. I was just trying to catch up on an old popular backlist stuff that was all complete. And so this is a new kind of booktube problem I'm having.
I have a feeling that as soon as I pick up Storm of Swords, I feel like that's going to be a hell of an experience. I'm prepping myself to not want to read anything else and not want to go to work for a few days. So that's kind of what I'm looking forward to. I'm leaving it till the tail end of the month. I know it's big and it's going to cross over probably into next month. We'll see, because I might fit something smaller in before I jump on it, because I really just want to binge that book straight. I'm a little bit different. So I can't binge series. I can't do too many back to back. I'm realizing this of myself, recently in the last couple of years. I even need, and I get laughed at, but like I even need to. Roger called me out the other day. He's like, "Are you even done Ship of Magic? I saw you picked up Jade City. Like, are you even done Ship of Magic?" I'm like, "No, Roger, I'm not done." I just need to bounce back and forth between stuff sometimes. I sometimes you're in. To me, okay. Here's what I think. So if I can't sit down and read, an 800, 900 page book in like 2 days or sitting, okay? I can't. It takes me a week, 2 weeks to finish, whatever page book. So to me, it's quite episodic. So if I sit down and watch a couple episodes of a show, it's not weird to not binge the rest of the series and go to a different show and then come back when you're in the mood. So for me, a wonderful contrast is Ship of Magic and Jade City, where like they're very different. They feel different. They're completely different. And so I need that when I'm getting, I don't want to say burnt out on something, but when I need something fresh to keep me reading, I like to switch. And then I like to switch from physical to like audio and do something different or whatever. And sometimes one book has a better audio, so I'll do that a little bit to give my eyes a break and go back. So do you bounce between, like, how many books at a time do you read?
That's so interesting, because we are different.
Before you answer, I want to let people know that if you see me all red and puffy right now, it's because a couple things. One, I have a bruise over here from jujitsu. Wait, this one and this one, so I'm all cut up and stuff. And then also I'm drinking like whiskey, so forgive me. It's hot, sweaty in here. That's kind of what you're gonna get today. Anyway, go ahead.
Oh no, I'm so different than you with usually like how many books I have going. I feel like I want to maximize my experience with each book, and so I'm a binger with TV. I've always liked to just binge series. Like I think I watched all of The Sopranos in a few weeks, all of Breaking Bad in a few weeks. Like I love the binge, just to be completely and fully immersed in one story, in one setting, and one set of characters. That's just always been what I've loved.
Your thing.
And I feel like I just feel like that maximizes my enjoyment with that work. And so I waste a lot of money, I think, getting audiobooks if they don't have them on Libby, or if I really want it on Audible. So I often get the print copy of a book and the audiobook. And so I am doing both at the same time.
I'm guilty of that too.
Yeah.
I'm guilty of that too.
Yeah, because I just love it where I'm sitting, reading from the print book, and then if I go on a walk, I just continue with that same book, like where I left
100%.
off. And
I literally,
yeah.
my wife makes fun of me like lately, since booktube, I've been wanting to read a little bit more, and reading has become more of a priority. And so I'll have earbuds in all the time. And it's as funny as like, I'll literally leave one room, put down a book, put in my headphones, go do some dishes or throw some laundry, whatever, listen to the audio, come back, sit down, take the audio out, read the book, or then start both at the same time. So it's weird how that happens.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah.
I'm not a big one for just sitting like with my thoughts meditatively. No. I just get bored with that.
Same.
And so I am now fully attached to my headphones, just like you. And
it's crazy.
I enjoy doing audiobooks, doing chores like the dishes or anything like laundry. But I will try to only do those chores if like I'm the only person in the room. So like I can just put in the headphones, listen to the audiobook. Like it's definitely overboard and antisocial. Like, but I just love it. I just love, audios. I'm so like narrators in fantasy are so good. Like I have so many favorite narrators. They add so much to the experience. I love doing immersive now, which I never used to do before, but now I often just am reading from the print book and listening at the same time.
So when you say immersive, you're reading from a physical. Do you read an e-reader at all? Do you have one?
No, I don't have a Kindle.
Okay. Don't say Kindle. Don't say Kindle because I don't have a Kindle, despite my name.
I don't have an e-reader. No.
Okay.
If I have to read an ebook, it's probably I'm doing it on my phone.
Yep.
Off of because like I've been traveling a couple times and wanted to read, and so I pick up my Kindle app on my phone. Yep. So when I went on a trip once when I was getting back into fantasy, and I thought that I just needed to bring The Way of Kings and Words of Radiance on this trip. I was actually took off from work. I was going on a long trip for a few months, and I thought those are big boys. Like I'm good with just those two. Yep. I finished those in days, and I needed to buy the ebook of Oathbringer to keep going with it. And so I did Oathbringer just on my phone, scrolling through.
Wow.
But I even when I read on my phone, or maybe if I read off of an actual e-reader, it would be better. But I love the print book so much, the feel of it. Yeah, I know. Seeing the progress too, the cover, the art.
So I was talking to I had Colin from Colin's Corner on 2 weeks ago, and we were laughing at this because I read a combination of audio, physical, and e-reader, and I have a Kobo, and actually I made that joke because I'm going to make a video on Kindle versus Kobo and talk about the differences, and we'll get back to immersion reading because that's one reason why I was going to pick up a cheap Kindle as well. I'm looking for my Kobo, but I don't have it. I forget where I was going with this, but basically I find it a lot easier to read from an e-reader. And what I'll do is sometimes, especially at night when it's more convenient, if I'm laying down and the cat wants to cuddle and I can't quite hold a book in front of me because he keeps bumping it, or if it's nighttime and I don't want to wake up the wife or whatever, I'll use an e-reader, and then I'll go and I'll move my progress in my book that I have on my desk, and I'll still I'll still move the bookmark like an idiot, but I just like that. I'm old school that way too. So I always have the physical. I mean, if I have the physical, I always kind of carry it with me, even though maybe I'm not reading from it all the time. So.
Oh yeah. I get antsy if an ebook doesn't show where I am
progress,
in the book.
I hate it.
I just really like knowing where I am in a book, and seeing me slowly progress is so satisfying.
Yeah.
But I also just went on a giant book buying splurge the last few years. So I have way too many books now. Like just my physical
100%.
TBR
I do too.
is 6 years long. If I didn't get a single new book, and I have a closet just full of books that's overflowing, and my shelves full. So I have plenty of paper books to read, but I do want to eventually probably get an e-reader, because when I do read off of my phone, it's not a very good experience.
No. And John was saying, damn, you're reading Oathbringer on the phone. Or no, it was Chaz. Oathbringer on the phone. I don't know how you listen. I've tried to read a little bit on my phone. I got the Kindle app, mostly for the unlimited or the Kindle Unlimited, or if you could find an ebook for $1.99, I'm like, sweet. And then I don't have a Kindle, so I just do it on the phone. I couldn't read on my phone. I don't care what size you make it, what font, what color. that blue screen, I just can't. As soon as I started using an e-reader, it was like a different world. I couldn't believe it. So, and it's much easier on the eyes. And I talked about this before, but it's actually, I find it, you're able to read faster. I can't speak for everyone, but I think that one could read faster on the e-reader if they dial the settings in, because the way the human eye works, it's not meant to read in a straight line. Your eye kind of bounces and it twitches as you go. And so when you find, there's tips and tricks on how to read faster, but one of them comes down to just in your periphery, just like how much of a sentence you can read. And when you're able to adjust the font and the margins and the spacing, you can kind of dial it into it, almost like I refer to karaoke, and why you can follow along so easy is because the thing bounces on the thing and it's a couple words and you don't even really need to look at all the words. You kind of just go. I'm talking like I'm a karaoke professional. I'm not, I swear to God, but you understand how quickly you can do that.
Yeah.
Or if you're reading from a teleprompter. And have you ever seen, I forget what it's called, but there's this weird thing that pops up sometimes on like a Facebook or like an article or something you can see. And it's like, I forget what it's referring to, but it basically, it's a type of reading where every first word of a sentence is bolded.
Oh no, I've never.
And it's like a test. It's like, oh, like I bet you could read that faster. And you're like reading it and you're like, oh my God, this is working. I can't remember what it's called, but if there was a way to do that where the text actually moves and scrolls, and the first word of every sentence is bolded, I guarantee you'd be able to blast through stuff way faster. So for me, on an e-reader, I use it only, it's just more, it feels more natural and I get less tired. For example, Ship of Magic is a paperback and the pages are like the writing's small. It's all like, it's harder to read, to be honest with you, I find.
Yeah. And for immersive, I know a lot of people like using the highlighting tool.
So that's what I was going to say. So Kindle has that tool, that immersion. Yeah.
I've been getting more practiced at just doing it with the books. So I found a lot of success doing it with the Sun Eater books. There's just something about Samuel Rowkin's narration that made it really easy for me to lock in, and Rakio's prose too. Like, because I've done so much immersive reading, and I usually like to listen around like 1.4 to 1.6 speed if I'm just listening to audio.
That's probably
maybe,
sweet
depending
spot
on the narrator, maybe 1.3. Depends how slow they're talking or fast. But when I am doing immersive, I often, the exact speed to match my normal reading speed would be closer to 2 times, like 2 times speed.
Yeah.
And it's so easy to get out of sync. Like it can be hard sometimes. Like I'll often go ahead, and then if I just like wanted to reread something like I naturally would, like then I have
they're already halfway down the page.
I'm out of sync, and I'm trying to get back in sync, and that can be a bit of a struggle. But with certain ones like with Sun Eater and with the Sharp books, the narrator Rupert Farley is easily one of the best I've ever heard. Just Stephen Pacey level great.
Really?
With that, so I don't like to just read those Sharp books or even the Sun Eater books in print alone, because I feel like I'm missing out on getting that performance. It just adds so much, and it adds to my immersion. And so I just loved either listening to the audio for those or doing it immersively. But it is so easy to get out of sync with it. And I do think like that e-reader with the highlighting tool would help with that. But
I think so. Yeah. And that's one of the reasons why I'm thinking about getting a Kindle on the side, is because when I do, and here's the thing, because I think to use the Immersion tool, and people can jump in and correct me if I'm wrong or if I'm right. I'd like to know if I'm right. You have to own the Audible version of it as well as the Amazon Kindle version of it. So you have to own both, and then they get kind of whisper synced or whatever you would call it. And so when you stop on one, it kind of picks up on the other. And when you're doing it together, it bounces through and you can do that immersion reading with the highlighting. I would find that really useful. And I wonder if, for example, you pause maybe somebody can answer this in the chat. If you pause the Audible audiobook, or if you just rewind it, does it go back and kind of redo and read along with you? That would be incredibly useful. If you could just, you know what I mean? Yeah.
I tried it with my Kindle app on my computer, and I actually prefer reading off of my phone rather than my computer. Like I do my work on my computer. I really don't like reading off my computer.
100%. Yeah.
But I did try whisper sync with one of my computer Kindle books,
Mhm.
and it worked really well in terms of like wherever I was in the audiobook in
You can just
my
pick
Audible
right
app,
up. Yeah.
like it asked me like, do you want to go to this spot? And yeah, I could choose whether I wanted to go to that spot or not, and it synced really fast and really well. So it was working.
So it works.
Well, like that, yeah.
Cool.
Like wherever you were in the Kindle one, you could get the audio to go there, or vice versa. So yeah.
Interesting. That's very interesting. Yeah, I think I'm going to wait to do that review because it's taking, not review, but comparison video. And it's going to take some more research, I think. So once I go through that and I make that video, I'm going to like watch it. Should I get that one? Like, I don't know. What's the consensus? Like, what do I do? So I'm happy with what I have, but I think there's always room to find a cool new way to keep it fresh and stuff. I'm kind of doing immersion reading with Jade City, only because it's kind of the second book that I decided to slide in. I kind of want to, it reads quickly. The narration is very good, which I can't quite say with conviction for Ship of Magic. It's the narration of that is not
Heard
great.
the sample.
Yeah.
It
It's okay, but there's some delivery that I just wouldn't have read that way. And it's a little bit cartoony sometimes. Like, it's hard to explain, but Jade City is quite good. And I'm enjoying that. So I'm going to do that a little bit more immersively, I think, when I do it. So I've been enjoying it.
Oh, nice. Yeah, I'm going to probably do that soon too, because I got Jade City on deck for myself and Ship of Magic. Like, you're reading these things that
so
I'm about to
we were
try
joking.
soon.
Yeah. So we're reading a bunch of the same stuff. We've overlapped on a bunch of stuff. We both read and really enjoyed Sun Eater. Where do you think we deviate?
Warlord, yeah.
Warlord's amazing.
Chronicles,
You mentioned
so good.
You mentioned like needing to read the audio or listening to the audio because you feel like you'd be missing out.
Oh yeah, with Warlord. Yeah.
Jonathan Keeble's like,
oh yeah.
If I didn't read that audio, I'd be pissed.
Oh my god,
So good.
Alan and Jimmy hyped up the audio so much.
When Alan said that this one was the one that made him go, okay, like I guess I can actually do audio, like I get it. I was like, okay, I have to listen to this guy.
But he's not an audio veteran, and so
no, he hates audio.
I've listened to so many great narrators that when I started The Winter King, I was like, oh, this is it. Like, I wasn't enraptured by the first 100 pages of the book or the audio. I'm like, oh, Keeple's fine. Like, this is okay. Like, I don't get it. And then something clicked like 150 pages into Winter King, where I was so immersed.
So into it.
Keeble was just this godlike storyteller. He was Durful telling this story. Yeah. And I, for like 3 weeks, was just in medieval England.
Me too.
And I was sad getting to the end of that journey and coming out of there and no longer being there with Keeble
and it's
with
weird.
Durful. And
maybe you can articulate this better, because I'm struggling to. What clicked for you in The Winter King? Because a lot of people go, oh, the first book's kind of slow. It's hard to get into all the names and all the blah, blah, blah. It's hard to disagree with that. Like, the first book was a little bit of a slow start, and I can see people maybe not finishing the first book, but reading well into the first book going, like, I don't know if I want to do this right now. What clicked? Because like halfway through the book, I'm like, this shit's awesome. And I couldn't wait when I finished. I was fist pumping at the end of the first book, and I just went into Enemy of God being like, that was the best book I've read to date.
Yeah. No, Enemy of God, absolutely. I did that was one of my first booktube videos, just a gush kind of spoiler reaction, because I was so hyped after finishing that book. And I don't know. The answer to your question is I don't know. Sometimes I think our experience of any kind of work of art is very personal, and it's extremely subjective. It's about where we are in our life at that point, what else we've been exposed to. But it's also with a book or with something like a movie, or there's so many different aspects that go into your experience. So, with a movie, it's the combination of the acting, directing, writing, cinematography, the score, the music, like it all combines. Yeah. And I think with books, it's similar. You get, the prose is a major factor if that's getting you immersed or taking you out. The characters, the particular setting, the plotting, and just the tone, the atmosphere. If we're listening to narration, just the timbre of the voice and their cadence and rhythm. I think it's all these things that kind of get mushed up into this mysterious mixture that ends up being our experience of a work of art. And in the end, I think it's a little bit inexplicable. Like, I can't tell you why The Winter King just started clicking and working, and immersed me.
I've thought
Yeah.
about this before because I want people to go in and enjoy the rest of it, but I don't know how to explain that. Like it'll all work. It'll work. For some people it won't, but for a lot of people it will. And I just couldn't remember that moment or why it just worked. But eventually I got to that second half of Winter King and was like, and in fact, I went out and bought the first edition, hardcover from way back and wanting to collect them. And it's actually kind of nice and kind of special because my wife, I wanted to read them. And we normally don't really buy each other books too much, but I asked for these, and she bought me the trilogy for like I think it was Christmas or my birthday or something, a couple years back now, and they're like still some of my favorite books I've ever read, and it's kind of nice that she gifted those to me. That was kind of cool. I loved it, and
But I can't even figure it out sometimes why it's working or why something's not working. It's like Faithful and Fallen up here, another one of just my utter favorites.
Me
I
too.
was just
Why?
on board from the beginning. Like, and I see criticism. Like I see people that I often agree with, and I will often see like on an analytical level, like, oh, that makes sense. Of understand. Like that makes sense. Like that's a logical take, but that just wasn't my experience. Like I was just in it in terms of being there with the characters, caring about what was going to happen, and in suspense with the action. Like I often felt like I was just like there with a GoPro camera in the shield wall with the different characters in the battles, but I cared so much about the protagonists and their scrappy band of underdogs and the heroism and sacrifice and their everything that went into their fighting against the odds and fight against evil that's rising in the land. It just swept me up in a way. Like I felt like reading Faithful and Fallen, it did feel like back a little bit like I was reading Harry Potter as a kid.
It was
again. Like
comfort
I had a similar
fantasy. 100%. So I felt the same. And a lot of people's criticism, one of the main things that people say is they couldn't get into they couldn't start to care for the characters. They didn't really understand what was going on. That stuff I get. There's a lot of characters, there's a lot of places. It takes time to understand what and why and where. But for the characters, I got attached to them like first few chapters. I'm like, I need to know, like, these are my people. I need to know what's
everyone, the side characters, the main characters, all of the villains. I made my blood boil. Like, and
Macklin is one of my favorite, not that he's a villain. He's one of my favorite characters in all of like literature. He's just, Macklin is my boy. And those chapters just were so good to read.
There were, I've read this now probably.
I'm rereading it this year with RJ. I'm hoping to.
Oh, nice. Yeah. I can't wait for a reread of that.
I'm going to do them on audio. I've never tried the audio. Have you? Do you know if they're good?
So I did that one. That was before I was fanatic about audiobooks.
Okay.
So I did Faithful and the Fallen pretty much just in print. And I remember this was probably towards the end of 2020, I think. Yeah. So no. This one might've been actually 2019. Yeah. Before pandemic. And I remember, so this is a bunch of years ago now, but I remember reading it. I was by the beach for a lot of it, and I remember just being there on the beach, and I remember the experience of reading it. And even books I've read more recently, I don't have as much of a memory of the experience of reading and how I felt. So I think our memory is tied to emotion, and so it's how well you remember a book. I think is a good indicator. I think for a lot of people of how much it stuck with you or how much it meant 100%. To you at the time. Yeah.
And honestly, it's funny that you say that because for the Faithful and the Fallen, I've mentioned this kind of in joking a little bit a couple times. I read it when I had COVID on my birthday, around my birthday. And so for a week I was just mangled, like not feeling good. And I just was cozy and reading, and I was just like allowed to feel like crap and not work and stay, like it was just such a cozy, weird time where I got to spend as much time as I wanted, notwithstanding not feeling great, with these characters, with these books. I just loved it. And it was my first entry into John Gwynne, and his style and his pacing just clicked with me.
Oh yeah,
and
totally.
I loved it.
Totally.
I just loved it.
But and these things, like, it's totally okay if that doesn't click with other people and that's not their vibe, but that was just perfect.
It's exactly what I needed at the time. And I have now here's what I'm afraid of, because I don't have time to reread stuff a whole lot. This is going to be one of the most recent things I've read that I'm going to go back and reread. I can see myself rereading the Warlord Chronicles at some point.
Yeah.
I'm afraid, is it going to hold up? Like, Malice is not without its flaws. It had some stuff, okay, but I loved it. And I don't know if the series as a whole, it's hard to think that it won't, because the end, like, there are moments where I'm just like, this is the best shit ever.
Yeah.
It's hard. I don't know. I'm worried that it's not going to, am I going to taint that memory? Are you ever afraid of going back to reread stuff?
Oh yeah.
That might affect,
Absolutely. But I haven't done too much rereading, but at least with the ones I have, in terms of some of my favorites, I did not have my original experience tainted by them. So like I've reread Cosmere books like Stormlight Archive and Mistborn. Those are some of my first reads, and so I reread them on audio actually during some of my long.
I'm gonna do it on audio just to breeze through them.
And I love those on reread. Dresden Files were some of my favorites, and then when I did a reread of those this past year, like I was maybe more into it, and so I'm trying to think of rereads where my original experience might be tainted. Maybe Harry Potter, because before I discovered adult fantasy, at some point, like maybe in like 2015, 2016, something like that, I tried doing an audio reread of HP and some of the later books. Like I started towards the end of the series because I knew I liked those books more. But then I tried some of the earlier ones, and I just couldn't even make it through book 4. And so it was like, oh, maybe I should have just left the HP books like back in my past and a treasured thing. And so, I do think I have a worry about that. But so far, at least since I've got into adult fantasy, the rereads have all gone wonderfully. And it's made me want to do more rereads of my favorites and keep working in new things. But going back to my favorites, I think is something I'm going to continue to do. But it's tough when there's hundreds on the TBR.
It's tough. And I'm 36, which is almost 50, which is basically dead. So I'm running out of time, man. I'm running out of time. John, I saw that you've read Malice, but you didn't continue. And Chris wants to pick up Faithful in the Fall, and he read Bloodsworn. I love the Bloodsworn books. Now I haven't read the sequel trilogy of Blood and Bone. So what I'm going to do is reread on audio Faithful in the Fallen, and maybe next year do that other trilogy. I've been saving it. But I love the Bloodsworn stuff. I think that Faithful in the Fallen is more special to me. I love it. I don't know what to say.
Yeah. But, Gwyn, I saw James asking if I binged through the 7 books of Banished Lands, and so I did really like it, but it was weird. I wish I actually in this case hadn't binged the 7 books, because there's like 100-year time jump, and almost all the characters are different. Yeah,
you're so attached to those that first crew. It might be a bit of a shock.
Oh, it was. Like I have a close friend that gave me the Mistborn books, and so now I've been feeding him lots of recommendations as I've been reading more. And so he ended up liking the Faithful and the Fallen, but I told him to take the break. He hasn't read the sequel books yet, but so it was jarring, and it took me a little while to get fully into the sequel story. But by the 3rd book, the big trilogy ender, that is, I think, one of my favorite Gwyn books. And so like it all wraps up in a really epic way and gives lots of closure to the whole series. And
cool. Okay.
So even if almost everyone who's a big Faithful in the Fallen fan says they didn't get as attached to the band of characters, and that was true for me too, but I still really liked a lot of them. And it was not as special as the first 4, but it wraps up in a really great way.
I that's awesome to hear. I think I'm really excited to go back from a nostalgia factor, just to go back to that world and Gwyn's writing in that world, and just even the references. Like I've waited, it's been 2 years since I read, like just the references to some of those characters. I'm just going to get that like just deep in my soul. I'm so excited. Loves Macwin, one of the best character arcs I've ever read.
Absolutely. Yeah.
He's a character I think about all the time. What's up, man?
And in book 1, he's just like a side character. He's an afterthought, and the way that he emerged to be this epic character that is so memorable was just something to behold. Yeah, and there are a lot of moments in that series that I still remember as like a stand up and sheer moment, and just so many from that. But I have not read the Bloodsworn books. I have them here, but I was gonna get on board with the new release, but then I had a lot of other stuff to read, and so I kept on putting Shadow of the Gods off. And then the second book came out, and I'm like, oh, why don't I just wait until the end of the trilogy when it's all there? And then he had his personal tragedy, and now the third book is taking longer. But I think I'm maybe just gonna wait at this point until the closer to the third book is coming out, and then I'll be able to just do the whole trilogy together, like, because I don't want to have happen what happened with the Justice of Kings, because
right.
Like I was so into that series. Like I thought that was going to become a new favorite series, and now I'm like on the verge of maybe DNFing that series. And
interesting.
And
it's funny how that can change so quick, right? Like that's pretty crazy. This is interesting. So you're a big rereader. Try and do one reread a month. Feel like you learn so much rereading. Yeah, I think if I could read more, like if I could read 30 books a month, like Kyle can, you better believe I'd be rereading 3 or 4 or 5 a month.
Yes,
because I agree. You can learn a lot more. You can just enjoy it. Again, there's that fear of maybe tainting that experience, but I think overall there's probably not too much of a concern there. But yeah, I would love to. There are books already that I would love to reread.
Yeah, and like I had amazing rereads.
Time. Yeah, it's time.
Yeah, totally. With some books, you just have a totally different experience with because of the way they were expertly plotted or foreshadowed. Like the original Mistborn trilogy was a completely different read on reread.
I bet.
In a really awesome way, because you're seeing so much that is foreshadowed or just answers to mysteries that are planted that you don't even think about on the first read, but that you're seeing. And I want so badly to reread Malazan. And so before BookTube, I was a slower reader, and I was like, I think I spent 6 months of like 2021 just reading Malazan books, Erickson, and interspersing like Esselmont Malazan books. I think for 6 months straight, I was just in the Malazan world. Yeah. And so, that took a long time, and I would read probably faster now just because I get through things faster with audio and reading in print. But I would love to reread, because that one will offer such a rich experience, knowing a lot of the things that happen and what Erickson's doing, just like even just rereading Gardens of the Moon. So I definitely want to do that. I saw Alex's reread Gardens of the Moon recently. I had an awesome time with it. Like I got a little jealous of that, but it's so hard because, like you said, we don't. If we only read a small handful of books a month, and
it's hard.
We have the endless TBR.
Yeah, man. It's like you said, I got books on the shelf, this shelf, other shelves, like literally years of books. Like I could just not buy another book and I'd be set for a while. It's hard, man. It's hard to plan that. But I saw this, Jane. No, I have read Dresden. I need to get back, and I wanted to talk to Ben about this. I need to get back to Dresden, and I think the next one I have to read is book 10. And it starts to really pick up here. So I've been waiting on those. Now you talked about Malazan, and we both like Dresden. Like we have a lot of overlap. Like you and I like a lot of the same stuff. You're much more, I think, well-rounded. You love a lot of sci-fi. You're probably more well-read. But I think on the whole, if we did a Venn diagram, like there'd be a lot in the center there. And so you really liked Malazan? Is that what I got out of that?
So I did, but it's not like one of my top 10. Okay. Like I just personally vibe more with the more heroic style fantasy.
I do too. That's why I wanted to ask you, because like if you liked it, maybe I'd like it.
So it offered a lot for me, even though it was not completely what I'm looking for in my reads. It still offered a lot, because even within this very complex narrative where there's not often clear good guys and bad guys, and you get well-rounded pictures of everyone and all different sides of the conflicts, and it is really rich that way. But that's not, it just doesn't grab me emotionally as much as the heroic style fantasy of Faithful and the Fallen, with the people that are the scrappy protagonists, and there's the clear evil where like there's a literal devil. There's a literal devil as the like, and the people demons, that have sold their soul to serve the demon. And so I recently did like right before our BookTube, or I don't even remember now, Wheel of Time. And so like Wheel of Time, not one of my all-time favorites, but that is more just my fantasy vibe and science fiction vibe than Malazan. So like but if I go through some of my favorites, just looking at it, Dresden, Mistborn, Stormlight, Faithful and the Fallen, Shadows of the Apt. So if I think that one big epic fantasy series is going to be a huge hit with you, it'd be that one. Like Shadows of the Apt is like perfect mixture. Yeah, that was Tchaikovsky's first 10 books, and they started in the mid-aughts. Like, so they're like 15 years old, and so they're like this great mixture of like feeling like Gwyn and Sanderson epic fantasy. And he's so creative. He puts his own spin on everything. But it has a very similar. It's like I really feel like it's almost a hybrid of the Gwyn and Sanderson epic fantasy style.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Very interesting.
Oh, so readable, like so fast paced for a 10-book series. Like reads so fast.
Are they big, Ben? Are they smaller books? There's 10 of them, but are they all huge, or what's the deal?
No. They're I have them over there.
Okay.
This is like they get bigger as we go.
Okay.
But
they're not crazy.
Here's like book 4 is the smallest one. That's like less than 500 pages, but like they're like mid-sized books.
Okay.
So they're not crazy, and they're so readable. Like the prose style is more, and the pacing is more like Gwyn and Sanderson. Like Sanderson, like Mistborn, or Gwyn, Faithful and the Fallen.
Okay. Now listen, 10 books is a lot in a series. Am I going to put you on the spot here if I ask you for kind of a general sales, like what is this about? Like what is the deal with these books? Because I've heard of them before, and I've almost went out and bought a couple of them. So depending on what you say now, no pressure. I'll fit one in. I'll fit one in.
So these are so underappreciated. So I feel a lot of responsibility now to get the word out. Because Tchaikovsky's so much more well known for his sci-fi stuff.
Yeah. I read Ogres and I loved that, but that's very
loved Ogres. Yeah. That's currently all the Tchaikovsky I've read is just the Ogres and Shadows of the Apt.
No shit. Is that right? Okay, cool.
Yeah.
While you talk and while you give us a bit of a thing, I'm going to switch headphones because I think I'm crinkling and crackling over here. So go ahead. Go for it.
Oh, yeah. Okay, so Shadows of the Apt is where Tchaikovsky takes a kind of the setting is secondary world, but not overly large, but he kind of takes the inspiration from World War I and World War II. Kind of there's this empire on the rise that is expansionist, and there's lots of kind of like city states and different kind of states that are kind of isolated, and there's this one wasp empire that is expanding, and no one is prepared to deal with this expanding threat. It's kind of like in World War II with Germany's expansion, and just and then soon into this series you could tell that war is going to break out, and it's a matter of can all these different kind of city states band together and figure out a way to stop the Wasp Empire from taking over everything. And so that's kind of just like the premise. It's kind of like military, political, but it's reads very much like Faithful and the Fallen, where you have multi POV, expands to different locations on the map, and there's a lot of really gritty, high stakes action. And the highlight, or one of the highlights, is the creativity in the world building. So Tchaikovsky was like a professor, or at least studied a lot.
He seems really smart. Yeah.
About bugs and insects and spiders, and like did a lot of biology in his former life before writing. And his world building was that in this world, like different groups of humans kind of bonded with a particular insect or arachnid, and kind of like evolved in tandem with this particular insect or arachnid, and developed a certain bond to them and some magical abilities that relate to that insect. So like they're humans, but some of them they're not like bug people, but so they call them kindin. So there's beetle kindin, there's ant kindin, spider kindin, scorpion kindin, wasp kindin, dragonfly kindin. And so
interesting.
Like the ant kindin are very warlike, and they have like a mind link, and they're very communal and militaristic. The wasp kindin are they can fly, they have wings, and they have like this like a sting, they call it, like a fireball. So they have a murderous weapon that they can just shoot out. And that they're hard to defend against. The Dragonfly Kindin are very graceful flyers and warriors. The Beetle Kindin are sturdy and they have lots of endurance. They're bigger. Fly Kindin are really small and they can fly around, and they're used as messengers a lot of the time. And
so interesting. Yeah.
And Spider Kindin are very like emotionally intelligent, and they can manipulate people's emotions and be very stealthy. And one of the joys of the series, though, those are like the starting Kindin almost, like and the Mantis Kindin are like really great ancient warriors too. And they have like these spikes that can come out of their arm and aid them in fights and things. And so one of the joys though of the series is that as the series goes, you're introduced to more and more Kindin, and you go to more places where there are more Kindin or Kindin that aren't as don't have as large of a population. And so like what you get in the beginning, it expands from there, and it never feels overwhelming in terms of the world building and the map. Like it slowly expands. And
sweet.
And there's this amazing thing it does. The series called Shadows of the Apt. Mm-hmm. And there's this great lore in the series where there's certain races of Kindin are either apt or inapt. The apt are ones who can deal with mechanical technology. And it's kind of like a steampunk setting where during the course of the series, like there's a lot of growth in technology and mechanical technology. And
sweet.
I don't want to give much away on that front, because that's also one of the interesting things is what new technology comes about and how they use it in war and in society. And so like the apt races are very mechanical. They're like engineers. They're always inventing new stuff. And the inapt races like the Spider Kindin and the Dragonfly Kindin, Mantis Kindin, they were like in charge. They were the powerful ones before the rise of the apt races, and their inventions kind of overthrew the inapt races who deal more with the old magic in the world. And I could talk about the series forever, but like there's this revolution in the past where the apt races overthrew the inapt who used to hold the power. And then that's one of the main tensions in this series. And there's this like sad history with a lot of these like inapt races and now dying out. And but they can tap into something that's like this magic that the apt races can't tap into, but like they can't like even read a map or open a mechanical doorknob. So like there's like they can't deal with any mechanical technology, but they can deal with like some of the older magic, whereas the apt races can invent all this mechanical stuff, but are not attuned at all to kind of like this older magic.
Interesting. Yeah. So as you were talking, like I'm gonna add that on my TBR as a priority for sure. I've heard a lot about it, but I never quite understood what the deal was. Jane says she's gonna add it to the TBR as well. With these chats, you end up just kind of adding a bunch of stuff and ending up with more to read than you thought. Yeah. So
no, that's one of my favorites, but that I discovered because of Alan's read along. He had Alan's Library of Alexandria is having a read along, and for the first 4 books, and it actually went great. Like
really, it was a big hit.
It was a couple years ago, and it went great. And it was just the first 4 books, because actually there's a first 4 book arc. And so that's also something that's not that intimidating, is that tells a pretty complete story. And there's a bit of a time jump after that. So like you could just look at those first 4 books, and those are the like pretty much the shortest ones. Okay. And you can know if you get into it pretty much by the first couple books, because they're solid. It's not like a series that like takes 7 books to get good or anything. So
sweet. So the first 4 are an arc. I can kind of read those and enjoy it. Yeah. So is the audio good as well?
Oh, they are amazing. So Shadows of the Apt just was, I think, published by Tor UK, and I think they just did a terrible job marketing this thing. Like it just did not get off the ground like at all. There are very few copies originally, I think, even printed. And so now that Tchaikovsky's a bigger name, they have gone back, and a couple of years ago they re-released the whole series in those matching black kind of set. So they re-released these in kind of these British like trade.
Those are the
like
ones
mass
that I've
market
been seeing.
Ones,
actually, are those in Canada? Like, would I have seen those? I've seen some nice covers.
Maybe, yeah.
I'm not sure.
Yeah, these are the ones they're selling in the U.S.
Okay, so those are the same as mine. Yeah.
And so they re-released these, and along with that, they did audios, because there weren't audios originally.
Oh.
And so they recorded new audios that they just released over the last couple of years. So all the audios are out, and they are phenomenal.
Who narrates them?
It's a young narrator who hasn't done too many other things, Ben Allen, and he's one of my favorites. I listened to a lot of this on audio, and it was fantastic. Like the audio is tremendous. They also, when there's like ghost type beings, can you hear me still? I wasn't sure. Your audio maybe cut out. Did my audio cut out? People still hear me?
There we go. They can hear you, but they couldn't hear me. Not sure what happened.
Okay.
Life of its own. Go ahead.
When there's like ghost type beings in the forest that are speaking, which happens occasionally in the series, the audio does this really great kind of extra effects for these like ghost type beings.
That's awesome.
The narrator just the narrator kills it. He kills it.
Okay, sweet.
And they're new, so like they're recorded very well. So the audios are fantastic and very immersive. Like I love a very immersive audiobook narrator who does like really distinctive voices for all the different types of characters.
I welcome effects and transitions and a little bit of music and atmosphere and stuff in audiobooks. It seems like there's this dichotomy where it's like it's a graphic audio and it's a full production, or it's just like a guy in a booth like talking. I like a little bit of extra, and even I'm thinking about like Andy Weir, like Project Hail Mary.
Yes,
it was just little bit of extra, and it just made the whole thing awesome.
Oh, perfect. Chef's Kiss, one of my favorite audiobooks ever.
Amazing, right?
Yeah, just absolutely perfect. And there's a narrative reason why that audio experience is even like, so much better than normal. But like they nailed it with it. And I was like curious, how are they doing that in print? 'Cause I actually didn't have the print book. I eventually picked it up at a used bookstore.
Well, let's be very careful what we say.
Yeah.
Did it work very well in print? Because I don't have the print, and I was curious about it as well.
No, it was so much better audio because it just shows kind of like music notes.
Right.
Yeah, it just shows like music notes, and on audio, like you can hear the music, and so
very cool.
It worked, I think, more immersively for audio, but like
that's awesome.
They do a little bit of that in Shadows of the Apps. The narrator is fantastic. He kills. I hope he does more things. But like I really like a variety of narrators too. Like I don't need my favorite narrator to be doing everything. Like Stephen Pacey. Good at. Yeah, Stephen Pacey is just the perfect marriage of like his personality, like doing the satirical dry humor of Joe Abercrombie's like the perfect marriage. Like and James Marsters being Dresden, like there's just a perfect marriage there.
So one I didn't. Maybe if you could answer Colton's question, what kind of Kindin would you be? I'm curious about that too. Now that you gave us a nice synopsis, but I want to get back to some audio stuff with you. I had a question. Go ahead.
Yeah. Okay. I think. Oh, that's a good question. I'd love to actually just be a dragonfly Kindin, to be able to fly. I've always wanted that ability. I have dreams where I'm flying through the air like Superman.
That'd be awesome. I have burning dreams.
But and being Wasp would be cool, just to always have great self-defense at your beck and call. But I think I'm more of a beetle Kindin, to answer Colton's question. Just like a little bit physically stout, like feeling like I have endurance. Like I've gone on some long treks, up and down mountains before. Like I feel like I have some of that beetle endurance and stolidity. Like they're some of the protagonists of the series, like all the way through are some of the beetle Kindin.
Oh, and interesting.
So they just have a kind of like quiet, kind of enduring through life kind of vibe about them that I think goes well with me. Yeah.
You sold me on beetles. I didn't think you were going to do that, but you did. That's awesome. John was saying that he wishes he could hire Stephen Pacey for his series. Trials of Ashmount is the book that I have. And I've had several people read my book and say they hear his voice. Stephen Pacey is awesome. And if I could hire Stephen Pacey for a book, I would too. So I totally get it.
But like Samuel Rowkin, like he was another one. Like people, like I did not.
This is what I was going to talk to you about.
I did not love his narration from the beginning. Yeah. Like I was like,
that's what I wanted to ask you. He was all right. I was like, I don't know. And then, can you picture any other Hadrian Martin?
No.
Like that's it.
Oh my God.
I did not like it. I even complained. And Scott was offended. He's like, dude, no. Like Samuel Rowkin is very good. Like don't. And then after the first book, like I think probably halfway through the first one, he became almost like Dresden. Like James, he had his things in his first couple of books, but he was pretty good for the voice right away. But I can't picture anyone else reading those books. And for Sun Eater, same thing. It's Samuel Rowkin. That's it. And I didn't like him at the beginning.
Yeah. Oh, me neither. That's so interesting. Like it sometimes
Crazy.
these things take a little time to click, but when they do, when it clicks,
Trust
like
the process, man.
yeah, like you loved Kingdom's Death. Like I've loved every Sun Eater book. Like Rakio, he wowed me. Like thank Mike's book reviews for putting it on my radar. Like
absolutely,
like Mike's book reviews like got everyone to pick this up. So he did a great service because he wrote Empire Silence like right out of college. And
crazy, right?
He's a writing prodigy. Honestly, I think he is a prodigy. Like the prose, I don't love like poetry. I don't read for prose and beautiful prose. No. Like it feels like really thoughtful and considerate and sophisticated without being
it's
like
very
overly flowery.
Deliberately, 100%, and the structure is deliberate. And you're right. I don't read for that, but when it hits you like that, in a very somehow, and I'm not quite sure how he does this, in an unpretentious way. Like there are moments where it's a little bit flexy and it's like, look what I can do. And then he goes right back into it. Like, no. Like it never pulls you out of the story. It got to the point where I was so impressed with these books and I'm like, this guy's going to be famous as shit one day. So I got Kingdoms of Death signed.
Oh, nice.
This fucking guy is going to be like a household name. Like I was so impressed with that. Absolutely. So,
I wish I lived closer to where he lives. Like he's like in North Carolina. I know he does like lots of signings down there, which is a little bit far away from me in New Jersey. But I want to definitely meet him when he goes like to conventions and things. I want to try to meet him, get some books signed.
Yeah, because 100%.
He's such a cool guy too, and like studied ancient history, and I also studied ancient history, Greek history a lot in college.
So I saw some Greek words and stuff in those books and stuff, and I was like, oh shit! Like he's just so smart and all those things. Like there's so much. It's a little disheartening to feel this way, but like I know that there's so much in those books that I didn't get, and that I didn't get the references of or for. That like that's one where if I reread after having someone maybe do a deep dive discussion, which those exist on YouTube, I want to go back and reread those with a little bit of that knowledge and reference and all that kind of stuff. You know?
He when I see his live streams or what he talks about, like what he reads, like it's a lot of headier stuff that I haven't tried yet. Even like Gene Wolfe and
in a sense,
like I want to try. I want to try that stuff, but I have a feeling it's not going to vibe with me as much as the normal things I've been reading. But
100%.
But I want to see at least and get exposed to it. But with Rakio, I feel like he's maybe younger than us.
Yeah, he is, and it's terrifying.
He feels like he's dropping wisdom, like real, like hard-earned life wisdom throughout Sun Eater. Yep. And I am becoming a wiser, more world-weary
100%
person, like from reading this. And since reading that, I've also read the first binding by R.R. Beardy, and he does a lot of that same type of like narrator is philosophizing,
right?
And it felt like I was becoming less wise, and as I was reading that, and that it did for me veer over that line of pretentiousness, where the author feels like they're trying to flex and show off, and it just was taking me out of it. But the ideas themselves, like I didn't feel like they were enriching my life, or that they were like real wisdom, like I'm getting with Sun Eater and Hadrian, dropping those wisdom bombs.
There are some, and it's funny because I did a tag video. First of all, let me just answer John's question. Are you on Twitter?
Oh yeah,
Where can people find you?
I mostly lurk on Twitter. I rarely post, but now that I have a channel, I really should start posting on Twitter. But I am on Twitter, and I probably do want to start posting there.
Yeah, man.
Like my Twitter handle,
and you can always put it in the chat as well, or put it in the comment after. But yeah.
I don't even. Is the Twitter handle where people find you? Is that like the?
Yeah, that's like you're at blah blah blah. I think I'm Rekindled Theo or something like that.
I should figure this out and actually start posting on Twitter. But I'm at Ben Idealist. At Ben Idealist.
Perfect. At Ben Idealist. That's it.
But I should start posting there. So if you want to follow me, I'll try to start like at least posting some book related stuff and videos.
Exactly. Have I read Red Rising? I have not read Red Rising yet. I have the 5-book set. They're up top on a shelf you can't see. And I wanted to jump in with this reread, blah, 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 Red Rising read along, and I haven't had time. That's one, okay. This is one where I started it on strictly on audio because at the time I happened to have the audio and not the books. I didn't like the narrator, and I can't remember who it was. It was
Tim Gerard Reynolds,
Tim
Red
Gerard
Rising,
Reynolds,
yeah.
who does Rhaenyra as well, I think, right?
Yeah,
And I like him in those.
Yes,
and I was
yes.
like, who's this Irish guy? Like, I just wasn't feeling it. And
I think you're right.
What does he? Is it
So,
are they good? Does he get? Can I learn to live with it, or?
So yes, I did, but that's a weird one. I've only done the first 3 Red Rising books. I did a lot of them in print. I didn't do much of the audio. I did some.
Okay.
But I just associated his voice and with the Rhaenyra characters, like Hadrian and Royce, and like he was so that vibe.
Yep.
And like Red Rising is, a little grittier.
It's gritty. That's what I thought.
Yeah. Like I didn't think he was the right choice. I think he does a solid job, but if you
he was good, I just didn't love the choice. I think that's exactly it.
Yeah.
Ben, are we going to do a first binding number 2 read along when it comes out and just hate everyone and everything the whole time?
Oh my God.
Now listen, hang on. I know Matt's opinion on it. That's a hell of a video. You felt the same way, and I have it behind me. It's down on the shelf down there. And I will be honest, when I saw you guys talk about it, and I think it was you that kind of corroborated a little bit, I was like, you know what? I trust them too much. And I particularly you, because I know we overlap immensely. I put it down, my list. I was just like, I'm not going to bump this up. Did I make the right choice?
No, yes. You made the right choice if you want to
enjoy my life.
Read things that yes, because since we like generally the same types of stories, this story was just anathema to me completely. I was bored.
Can I interrupt you for 1 second?
The entire 817 pages.
That's, first of all, terrible, because it is a very big book. It looks bigger than I think it is, but it's fat. Did you read or have you read The Name of the Wind? Because I know Matt has, and he's like, dude, it's the same.
So I haven't. I think Matt's experience was like
bad
people
in a
who read Name
way.
of the Wind. Like I have seen a lot of people that love Name of the Wind also love the first binding. So that if you like that kind of story, I have seen people like both of those.
It's more of what they like then. It's fine. So, it should be fine.
But I think Matt's experience couldn't have been helped, but he loved Name of the Wind, and he was just seeing the constant similarities and like plot ripoffs and character beat ripoffs, and so like I read it without any of that. I read it just like without any of that. So I was coming into it fresh. I think I had maybe the best shot of really liking it, since I so many people just complain about what it rips off, but I just could never get into it, and I ended up just hate reading it, and I stuck it out the entire time because I was buddy reading it with my friend, and we never buddy read, and so he was like, oh, let's do a buddy read with something under TBR, and like, okay, I'm excited about this new release. Yeah. And so like he was reading it, and I had to keep going with him, and neither of us ended up liking it, and so it was just a disaster of a buddy read.
This is a situation where, listen, and I will be the first to say that books are subjective, books are art, not everyone is going to love the same thing. And I think it's a very strong argument to say a book is objectively bad. I think that's not the right thing to say about literature or about the author, because things are going to appeal to different people. But this is a time, I have to admit, where I jumped the gun. I bought the book. I heard there was, a lot of buzz around this author and blah, blah. I wanted to support. Yeah. And then I heard resounding sort of from the people that I not the people that I like care what their opinion is, or like the people that I think most match my taste, as simple as that. They just didn't like it. And so it just made me not want to pick it up. There are some times where people don't like something and I'm like, ooh, like I might like that. Or they'll say that they don't like it, but they'll say things in a good review. They'll say as much as they can about what makes it the way it is, good or bad. And that will make me want to go pick it up. So it's rare that I just don't read something because someone doesn't like it, or vice versa. But a lot of the people that I agree with, like you, and you kind of know what I like, and I think vice versa, it didn't make me want to write. So I jumped the gun, and I don't think I would have bought this book had I waited 3 months.
Yeah,
Do you do
yeah.
that too? Like
Me too, me too. I
was like,
got
gotta have it.
hyped because of Petrick, and I
Yeah,
should know
Petrick,
better
and I
because
trust Petrick. I do,
because
but we don't overlap
I overlap on him with so much, but he reads so much and so
everything.
widely within the genre.
Yeah.
And so like you're not going to perfectly align with anyone, even the
100%.
ones that you overlap with most, you're still not going to overlap with them completely. And so like I ended up Petrick loved Brian Savely's books and Skullsworn, which is one of like the worst reads of my life. And so like
Wow.
that I'm like, okay, I'm not going to overlap Petrick on everything, but
Okay.
I still been following his reviews even before he was on BookTube. I was reading his reviews on Goodreads, and so he got me hyped. I saw his interview with R. Virdi, and it was like such a cool guy.
Just
and he has an inspiring story too, where
100%.
Jim he was almost his life was saved by comments that Jim Butcher made to him at his book signing, and like it was such an inspiring story. So I wanted to support him.
Yeah.
And just nothing about the story was the right story for me. And at this point in my life, like I feel like maybe if I had come to it, as earlier or just looking for something else, or but it was such a slog for me, and I was truly hoping like, oh, maybe just after this beginning part, I can see where it's heading. Like maybe when we reach here, it'll pick up. And then there's like this 100-page section that was just like, oh my god, this is so boring to me. Can we just get to the next section? And we're like, okay, finally, this is moving. Good. And then, oh no, like how long are we just traveling here? And we're getting another myth retelling in this fictional world, like for a whole chapter. And I'm like, oh my god, okay, let's just get to the ashram, the school, because like we know that he can use magic, and there's one place in this world you can learn magic, so you're going to end up at this magic school.
Yeah, exactly.
And it takes so long to get there, but finally I'm like, okay, maybe I do like school settings. Maybe this is gonna pick up, but like nothing was working for me in the school setting, and that by the end, even like, is there going to be an interesting like climactic moment here? I love the endings and really intense moments. Like the ending big climactic moment just totally did not work for me, and it felt ridiculous and absurd and anticlimactic. And so to answer Matt's question, I just can't do it like that. The first book, it was the most of Tales of Tremaine that I can put myself through. Like even I just don't get that much joy out of like watching things or reading things I don't like, and being able to rag on them. Like I don't want to rag on things or hate watch or hate read things. I almost never DNF, and I was buddy reading this one, so I stuck it out.
Now you couldn't, yeah. So how do you? That brings me to a question, a good question, because obviously this is an interview, a very formal interview. How do you decide on what books to review? What books, if you hate a book, look, rant reviews, negative opinions are going to get views. You might not want to be known for that, but I don't think it's wrong to have them. To what extent do you share your negative reviews, opinions? Do you try and stick? Are you just lucky? You know what you like. You pick stuff you like. Clearly, you read stuff that you don't like. How do you choose what to review and what not to? And how are you delicate about it?
So I am trying to take a general approach of just providing my very personal subjective experience of like, that's what I most want when I'm watching reviewers and booktubers. Like I don't want plot summaries. Like I don't want more that objective analysis. Like
me too.
I like following people and getting to know the people who are doing these reviews or wrap ups, and then just getting their experience, their emotional experience. Like how engaged were they? Like what kind of ride was it? And that's what I like. And so I am trying to approach my own reviews, whether it's on Goodreads or now on BookTube. I haven't been doing too many dedicated reviews, but I really enjoy just providing my experience in wrap-ups. Like I'm starting to do mid-month check-ins now, so I can do more wrap-ups, and I love doing the monthly wrap-ups. And I've been doing series reviews as well, because I get through series, and so I feel like then I have maybe a lot to say about the whole series
for sure,
and what that journey was like. And so like I will be brutally honest, and I appreciate, Matt's brutal honesty, because he puts out a review for almost everything he reads.
Yep.
And so like we get the good and the bad and everything in between. And so I really appreciate that. And, it is a little tough though, if I'm starting to now read some self-pub and I feel like pressure. Yeah. Like when I read The Legend of Black Jack as part of the author's read along.
Yep.
Like I think I'm going to like this, but I felt pressure to like it and to be positive about it because I
Absolutely.
wanted the author to succeed. And then I had a good time with it, but it wasn't like best read of all time. And
Sure.
And so like I didn't really want to, voice any possibly negative opinions. Like I just felt a little weirder about it with a self-pub newer author.
Look, listen, I'm not an author, and I can't pretend to speak for an author, but I think, and we have a couple in the chat or whatever, but maybe they can chime in. But I think that if an author, I don't think they expect it to be necessarily your favorite book of all time. I think what they derive the most value from is you putting out a thoughtful opinion, saying what you liked, what you didn't like, and guiding people maybe who the type of reader that you think might enjoy it. If they can find it through, excuse me, through your review, then I think you've done a service. Whether or not you're high on it or not or whatever, people need to find readers for their books. And I think the type of reader needs to be the right kind of reader. And that's not always going to be the same for everything. So I think that's probably the good thing. But Colton wants to know if you're going to read Nevernight. I love Nevernight.
Oh yeah, no, that's definitely on my TBR. I am very intrigued because Christoph's so divisive. So I had just people vote for my TBR because I have so many, and I truly just often just don't know what to read next or can't figure out how to prioritize my TBR. So I was just let people choose for me and take the decision away from me and not have so much decision fatigue. So yeah, Nevernight should be on my TBR for this year. And I'm pretty psyched for it. I go into everything wanting to just love them and wanting them to become a new favorite, wanting them to be immersive, to take me on an emotional roller coaster, to give me maybe a transcendent experience. Like I live in a pretty boring place, and like
not every book is going to be magic, right? Like that's all we want, but
yeah, I go into it hoping for it. Yeah. And some are kind of like in between where they were okay and they weren't like a net negative, but then others where I felt like they were kind of a waste of my time. Like I do just want to like sometimes rant about that or get that off my chest or just at least be very clear that was my subjective experience. Like I did put out like my most disappointing books of the year. And I think I was pretty brutal in there, like about my experience of the books and how bored I was and just, but
so that's one thing. I tried to qualify the fact that, listen, they're not good or bad books. I was disappointed. And some of them are like very like highly rated books. People love them. Like I got messages being like, I'm heartbroken you didn't like this book. But it's just, I didn't like it as much as I wanted to. So I was almost disappointed in myself, like just for the experience as a reader. I'm like, damn it. Like I really wanted to be part of that group. It wasn't bad. I actually may have just enjoyed it just fine, but it didn't do for me what I wanted it to. And that was the disappointing part, not the book, not the writing, not the whatever. Right.
And I think as long as we're just clear that that's our own very subjective experience, then it's all good. And I think people want to know kind of, what if they're following someone over a long period of time, just like, oh, is this vibing with you? And it's okay if we disagree and have different experiences. Just like sometimes it truly is this an irrational thing. Like I don't know why, with food that I don't like, eating mushrooms. I don't like the texture of mushrooms. It's completely irrational. 100%. There's no good reason why. I want to like them because they're in a lot of different like great dishes that people love and my wife loves them. But so it is just irrational sometimes. Like our taste, like our aesthetic taste is sometimes just irrational and personal. And But I'm curious, is there anything that we disagree on though, in terms of like one of us really did not enjoy a series?
I'm starting to think. And so what I'm going to take away from this, and to reiterate for people that are watching that maybe didn't catch it, I'm going to take away a recommendation for Shadows of the Apt by Tchaikovsky. I think you did a good job selling that. A couple other people, John, Jane, I didn't just make those names up. They're in here. They're going to read them too. And so I really want to read that. And I think I'm going to go ahead and pick one up. What about, I'm trying to think of books that you haven't read that I have that I could recommend to you. I think you've read more than me. So I think anything I pick, anything that I look at on the shelf behind me, you've probably read. Is there something that you know that I have read that you haven't and you're curious about?
So let's see.
What do you think?
Like, have you read Kingkiller or Discworld? Those are some of the big ones that I have not read.
I've read some Discworld, but I haven't read the best of the best. Discworld.
Yeah, I've only read Mort, so I haven't gotten City Watch either. Like
I read Mort too.
It was like, oh, like this is okay, but it didn't really inspire me to keep going with Discworld.
Yeah.
So that one is a big heavy hitter. that I really haven't dug into yet.
What else?
What else? Some like I haven't tried
Have you
Susanna
tried?
Clark, like
Okay.
Piranesi or Jonathan Strange and Mr.
That was on my
Norrell.
disappointed list, Piranesi.
Okay.
But Jonathan Strange and Mr. Norrell, I have, and people say that that's very good, and they're very different. So you don't need to be like, oh, if I didn't like that, I probably won't. Just they're very different. I liked Piranesi enough. It's just that was one that I was disappointed I didn't like as much as I wanted to. It just I was like, okay, cool, that was fine, but whatever.
Yeah.
A lot of people love it, and I can see why people would like it. But have you read Frederick Bachman?
Oh no. So
Okay.
I've been
I
on
like
a
Frederick.
giant
How about
fantasy binge. Yeah,
Blake
I've been on a
Crouch?
giant. No. Okay. So I do have a bunch of Crouch books. So I've been on such a giant fantasy binge where I've been trying to just work in some others, like historical fiction. Started to get worked in, like sci-fi, more sci-fi. But like I've not tried Blake Crouch, not tried Bachman. Yeah.
I don't know if you'll like, but I mean, I think you'll like it enough, but I don't think, you're going to want to read everything by Bachman ever.
Yeah.
But those are nice when you need something different and you want to feel some shit.
Sometimes I want that. Yeah. Sometimes I want that. And I think I'm maybe too much in the fantasy and sci-fi, like only kind of binge right now. But
Okay.
like what Blake Crouch were you a big fan of?
So Blake Crouch, so I have a video for people that don't know on where to start with Blake Crouch, how to read Blake Crouch. There are different entry points for what you
Oh,
like.
I gotta watch that.
Yeah, so if you like fantasy or sci-fi or whatever, he has kind of like a book that's like a Western kind of vibe. Those are all for different people, I think. And I think I do an okay, it's not a good video because the focus is off and it's trash. But I think the content is okay. So I would suggest, I think you're really going to vibe with Blake Crouch because I think you appreciate quick, snappy writing done in the right way. I think you appreciate when pacing works for a type of book.
Yeah.
I know that you don't need to love the characters if you have a good time, because the character work is okay, but it's not about the characters. It's the plot. They're thrillers. They're like techno thrillers for the most part. I think you'd have a blast with either Dark Matter or Recursion, and I'm struggling to figure out which one to recommend to you.
Ooh.
The one that got
as a starting point. Yeah.
And the reason why I say that is because Recursion and Dark Matter are similar. So a lot of people say like, oh, like I liked one more than the other, but they were too much of the same. I really liked both. I actually liked Recursion a bit more because it's a bit more of a macro story and it's a bit broader with more like global impact, whereas Dark Matter is more micro, more intimate. You're following this one guy, his family, his life, like, oh my God, what am I going to do with my family kind of thing. And it's a different type of story, but not the premise, but a little bit of the sci-fi is kind of the same. I would say to dip your toes in, maybe try Dark Matter. I think you can't go wrong with Dark Matter. Some of my favorite are the Wayward Pines trilogy. Those were a fun time.
I have all 5 of those books ready to go.
You have
on
those
the
5.
shelf. Yeah,
Perfect.
yeah.
Try Dark Matter, and if you like
Ooh,
it,
Dark Matter. Okay. Yeah.
He has a very choppy, fragmented way of writing that works very well in his later books when he really polishes it up. In Dark Matter specifically, it's really good. That book got him on the map, I think, and there's a adaptation coming and stuff, so people like it. I would try that. Have you read a lot of King? Have you read 11?
Okay, that's probably the other big one where you're way ahead of me.
Okay.
So I have a lot of King books that I've picked up over the years, but have only read Salem's Lot, which
Great book.
I liked, and it gave me like nightmares, like literal nightmares. And I don't read horror. I don't watch horror movies. Like I typically don't enjoy like getting actually frightened too much. And I'm like, that gave me actual nightmares. Only for like maybe a couple nights, but that was an intense experience. But that's early King, and I definitely want to try more because I have a lot of them. So I think King is another one. Like I haven't tried McCammon or much King. Okay. So like I don't know if you have particular like 11, 22, 63 probably.
Like if you haven't read a lot of King, I'm similar to you, and I just started getting through King in the last couple years. Like I didn't really read a whole lot of King before. It was my book of the year last year. I loved it. I would say Pet Sematary for a long time was my favorite. It was just very poignant and very it was just done very well. It was short. It was impactful and kind of creepy and it did all the right King things in the right ways, I thought. I don't know if I would like jump into 11/22/63. Like if you don't fall in love with King's writing, like that one might be a bit of a chore. And it
I have
depends
Pet
on
Cemetery. Yeah,
Pet Cemetery, man. Read that. Good times.
I have so many to choose from. That's a little bit of a.
Misery is
I'm
a great
paralyzed
one.
with like I have Misery
Yeah.
and Dark Tower series. Like I have ready to go too. Have you
You've
done
never read
Dark
Dark Tower? No, man.
No.
We need to do that together at some
Oh
point.
yeah.
That'll be
That's
fun.
that's one of the big ones in modern fantasy that I haven't done yet.
Yep.
Like
Yep.
I'm trying to read all the big ones, just even if I think I won't love them. Like I read Broken Earth trilogy. I didn't think that one was going to be perfectly suited to me, and it wasn't.
Yep.
But like it's one of the big heavy hitters like in the modern fantasy genre. So I wanted to read it at least, see if I would vibe with it, and to read something a little bit different too. So I am thankful I read it. But I pretty much like everything that's really big in the genre and big authors and series. Like I do want to try them at some point. And so Dark Tower is one of those big gaps in my.
That's a bucket. Like I need to. There's so many conversations that take place that I really want to be part of. There's
Realm of the
many
Elderlings,
references.
Dark Tower, yeah.
Right. So I'm
Dark
making my
Tower.
way through, Realm of the Elderlings, but yeah, Dark Tower's a huge one. Colton saying I'm planning on reading Salem's Lot this year. Vampires are awesome. You read Empire of the Vampire, right?
Not yet. So I've
haven't?
done no Kristoff. I
No
have
Kristoff?
it.
Okay.
But Nevernight's
That
probably
makes
going to
a
be
lot
my
more
first.
sense.
Nevernight's probably going to be my first one.
Yeah, I think I'm just so curious what you're going to think about Nevernight. This is going to be a test for our relationship. Are you going to because here's the thing.
It worked for you?
It worked for me, but is Nevernight like the best fantasy? Like is it supposed to work for a 36-year-old like adult like fantasy whatever? Like not really, but I guess he just does it in a way that kind of just worked for me. Even the footnotes, I thought they were funny. Like I like them. You can skip the footnotes, but it just adds a little bit of texture and like more lore and background world building that I think people would appreciate if they like the book and can skip if they just want the bare minimum. They're like side quests.
Did you do
It's
it
like, a little
just
bit
print
of that.
or audio or
I
both?
did both. The audio was okay. I was pretty good actually because it's very difficult to do. I don't want to spoil anything, but there's
the footnotes. I imagine it's just like
the footnotes
difficult.
are okay. He changes the way of speaking a little bit, just enough that it's a bit of a break the fourth wall kind of whatever, and then back to the story. And there are some unique characters that would be difficult to do, like, and he does them very well. You know what I mean? So I liked it. I really like the characters.
Oh, nice.
Me like it takes place in kind of an old, like a Venetian, like an old Italy, okay, and it's very much that type of ancient Italy, say Venetian type world, because there's canals and there's like like not rivers but like ocean and stuff, and it's islands and things like that. And you said you like magic school. There's like assassin school, and the magic that she's able to employ and learn how to use is so cool. This isn't a spoiler to say that her magic basically is that she can manipulate shadows and make them do stuff. She can hide in shadows and eventually learn how to move within them. And I won't say much more than that, but the magic and what she's able to do, and she kind of grows into her power, is like super cool, man. And it's gory and in your face, and there's sex and there's blood and there's just revenge, and it's just like a fucking romp. It's fun.
I'm not squeamish. Like before I got into adult fantasy, like I was reading a lot of just like lit fic stuff that is just like often very
tame.
Just like it like does not hold back with that stuff. Like things that fantasy readers, not the opposite of tame, whatever that is. Just like I was reading some J.M. Coetzee, who's like the South African Nobel Prize winning author, and like Philip Roth, and like authors who just like go really, and Nicholson Baker, to like go pretty wild with like the sex stuff, and like I come from a bit of a reading of that background. It's like the stuff that
you're not afraid to
in modern fantasy like is so tame in comparison, and like the things that turn up people off, like it's like any little tiny sex scene, like often like is something that like a lot of fantasy readers like have issues with. But no, like you're talking about all this blood and gore and sex in Nevernight, like sign me up for it.
It's fun. It's fun. I had a good time. It's one that I will say I wasn't sure if it would work for me, and it totally did, which is weird because I finished Empire of the Vampire. A lot of people love it. It was okay. Like it was okay. That was one where like I really wanted to like it. And I will say that possibly it took too long to read it. And I think that I would probably reread this when he releases the sequel because it's a big book. There's a lot there. There's a lot of interesting stuff and world building and lore and characters and stuff. Like it was okay. I just, for some reason,
wow.
I didn't like it as much. And I like
Interesting.
Nevernight more.
That's one of the few
Weird.
times I've ever heard someone be like in between on Emperor the Vampire. I've seen most people like love it or hate it. So that's like one of the most divisive books I've seen over the last bunch of years.
A lot of people were saying that it's one of their favorites of the year. A lot of people were saying that some people didn't like it, but a lot of people were like, they were putting it on like top whatever lists.
Yeah.
And I didn't get that. I really wanted to continue to love Christoph, but I didn't love that one as much as I thought I would. And I'm still not quite sure why.
Yeah.
Like I don't really know why.
Yeah, it's just the mysterious mixture of stuff like that. The voice, maybe the particular characters. Like
I will say this. I'm not spoiling in saying that the way it's written is it's basically it's flipping back between present and past. And in the present, someone's chronicling their story. It's the main character. There were times when, and John's right about this, that it was a little cringy. Like some of the dialogue was a little bit like really, whereas in Nevernight, I felt like maybe I was in the mood for it. We said it was subjective. Sometimes you're in the mood for something, or it's resonating with you at a particular time in your life, or you just watch something. Like sometimes it just works in your environment. Sometimes it doesn't. And this one, there were moments where it was a little cringe, even for me. I can appreciate a good joke. I can appreciate funny, whatever. This one was a little cringe at times, but almost in a way, at times it bothered me. Like we were in the present, he's chronicling his story, he's telling his story. We're in the past and the plot is moving along. The pacing is good. And then we'll revert back to the present in the moment when he's chronicling his story just for the sake of a joke. And it just like pulls you kind of out of the actual story that he's telling. Yeah. And it's like, no, like, come on. Like we didn't need that funny sarcasm. Like just get back to the actual story. Right. So
yeah, I think I'd be bothered by that too. Yeah.
Every now and then, you know what I mean? And so it's done okay. It's just there were minor things, and the back half for me was way better than the first half, I thought. But I'm so curious what you're going to think about Christoph. So curious.
Oh yeah, I'll get to that this year, and you'll be ahead of me with Greenbone Saga. I did not enjoy really the novella that I just read, the e-arc of Untethered Sky, but like just not the kind of story I was in the mood for. Like now that I'm trying to read arcs, it's just kind of like randomly reading books that I'm not even in the mood for to pick up, like, but just like, I
because
just,
you have it.
Yeah, right? I have it, and it's a new release, and I want to like NetGalley is so weird. Like every book that you get approved for, like now contributes to your feedback percentage, and like so if you don't submit a review for it, like your percentage is lower. And
I'm afraid what I request from NetGalley, I haven't really requested a lot, but I think there was one. I think the last one I requested and received, and I feel completely guilty for it, is Ashes of Man, and I still have not read Ashes of Man. I got an e-arc for that book, and I just couldn't get to it on time. And then when I read Kingdoms of Death, I didn't rush to pick up the next one because it had been out for a while, and I was like, I kind of want to say, this was selfish, I kind of wanted to save a book so I could just pick up a Sun Eater book whenever I wanted. I like that feeling. I wanted to go back to Jane asked a question before. What is your most anticipated release this year? I can't quite think of. Well, I have a couple, but maybe one.
Release.
I don't really know what's coming out this year.
I have a couple book twos of series that I read book one of and liked. So I already read one that I enjoyed, Antimatter Blues. It's sci-fi, just snappy sci-fi. It was book 2 of Mickey 7.
You were gushing about Mickey 7.
Hasn't picked up a big following yet, but like there's going to be a Robert Pattinson movie like next year, so it's going to probably blow up. But like these are like fast-paced Project Hail Mary style hard sci-fi where it's just like
Mickey
a little
7.
lighter in tone.
Okay.
That one's like, I think you'd really vibe with that one. Mickey 7. To Antimatter Blues just came out. I was looking forward to that, and it delivered as a book too. Kyle also read Mickey 7 and liked it, and really liked Antimatter Blues even more. So like that's solid new release that's I think coming out already or just coming out soon. Book 2. And then I read Jim Butcher's Son he started releasing an urban fantasy series, Dead Man's Hand, last year, and I really liked the book 1, and so I'm looking forward to book 2 coming out later this year. Can't remember the name of book 2, but Dead Man's Hand was the first one, and then Ed McDonald is releasing book 2 in his series. Let's see. Got some of these. There's Dead Man's Hand.
I've seen that in the bookstore. I've seen that exact one in the bookstore. I'm like, oh yeah, I've heard about
solid, that. Fast-paced urban fantasy, and it has a really different feel from Dresden and what his dad was doing. It's fun kind of to know, like, oh, this is Jim Butcher's son, and it's like inspired but trying to do his own thing. Like,
but so if you like Dresden and you like Jim Butcher, is it safe to say you might like this one? Like, you should try it and pick it up? Okay, cool.
Totally.
Okay.
And you have that feel where it's like, oh, there's a lot of deeper things going on in this world that it'll probably expand into. But like Stormfront, it feels like a fairly like small scale beginning to the series, but that will probably open up much wider as we go. But cool. I definitely enjoyed the voice and the tone and the characters in this one. So I'm looking forward to book 2 of that. And then book 2 in this one too, like Daughter of Redwinter was book 1 of the Redwinter Chronicles. I think it's going to be a trilogy. Cool.
Sweet.
Book 2 is coming out. Like, this one's more of a like slower paced fantasy, more like Farseer. Like, this read to me very similar to the Farseer trilogy. Like, I don't expect this series to become like favorite of all time. Like, Farseer is not a favorite of all time for me, but this one was really solid, and I got into it, and it was like a touching, kind of very character focused kind of story. So it's less on the action or fast paced plotting like I normally like. So it was a bit of a change up, because it's more of that slower.
I need to be in the mood for stuff like that.
Yeah, and it was short though, so it's it didn't overstay its welcome, and the magic was really cool. So like this, it's like a late teen protagonist who can do this taboo magic where she can see basically ghosts and like dead people, which is a taboo in the society, just like Fitz in Farseer, with the skill the wit. I can't remember.
Right.
Like one of them is taboo, and like it's very similar, and has another kind of magic where she's going to this Redwinter fortress where they train people in the magic, but she's not there as an apprentice, but to like be like a serving girl, and so she's on the outside of this whole society.
Very cool.
But like I'm looking forward to book 2 of that. So in terms of new releases, like after some like bad experiences, like with the first binding, like I'm less enthusiastic just to dive into just like new releases, like sight unseen. Like I want it to maybe marinate in the community for a little while. The problem is that like books often need people like booktubers or to take the plunge to get the word out.
It's true.
So, and so there's a bit of a chicken and the egg there with the new releases.
Who is going to talk about it to get you hyped to read it? Like if everyone's kind of waiting on the sidelines, right?
Yeah. So I did that with this one last year, and it worked. Like I knew nothing about it. Alan actually released. Alan's great about like reading arcs and getting reviews out for new series and authors that aren't on people's radar. So because he had liked Blackwing by this author, and so he actually did a positive review of this. So I usually like to see at least like one positive review from someone that I follow. But yeah, that one was a success, but the first binding wasn't. So like I'm now just a little bit more hesitant about just diving in and buying new releases, and it's a big expenditure. It's a big expenditure, and like I already have so many other books I want to read. So
it's a little of the FOMO for me, because I there are times when I'm like, man, I have yet to jump in on a new release and get, or even read an arc and get a review out before the books. Like I have not been at the front of the line so far on anything. So that would be kind of cool. But then I'm also a little hesitant because like, what if I don't like it or whatever? Like, and like, does that really matter? Like, can I just wait until everyone, like I'm late to damn near everything. So, but it is what it is, man. I mean, who cares?
Jane has a nice question here. Yeah. For years I was reading more litfic, and I do have some recommendations. I had some amazing reads in that period that I wasn't reading any fantasy, and there's just a whole variety though of the types of reads. So I'll give you maybe a few. In terms of more contemporary literature, that's like more of just like character based personal story that's really easy to get like emotionally invested in. The Art of Fielding is a novel from about 10 years ago by an American author about a couple baseball players who go to a small college in like Minnesota and like the north of the US. And it's just about their kind of lives there at this small college, and trying to like do good in baseball. And one of the baseball players like was basically a prodigy, but then he has kind of like a mental block, and he can no longer play as well as he used to. And it's about their social lives at the college, and about even there's different POVs. So you get the president of the college, a couple other characters, but just a really, really like easy novel to get completely lost and immersed in, just like contemporary lit fic. That's the Art of Fielding.
Interesting.
And then by Chad Harbach, I think that one was. And I was so into that book. I think I even reread it like a couple of years after I read it the first time, and I got everyone in my family to read it. They all loved it. And I think it was fairly popular in the lit fic world when it got released, maybe about 10 years ago, or 10,
That's awesome.
12 years ago. But I love that book. That's an all-timer for me. And then more intense lit fic, like more dramatic, intense. J.M. Coetzee, who's a Nobel Prize-winning author from South Africa, he's written a lot of very famous books in the literary fiction world. But Disgrace by him, Disgrace was just one of those really just electric reads where I read it in one or two sittings.
I'm going to add this one. Yeah,
it was so intense. And it takes place in South Africa with this professor who's in the beginning. I don't even know how much I should give away in the premise, but it was so intense in a lot of ways, and it deals with kind of racial history and apartheid in South Africa a little bit, but it's more of just like a personal story of this professor and his daughter and their neighbors in South Africa. Just utterly compelling in every way, and it's a short book too. Disgrace is a short book.
Like, is that how you pronounce it? Coetzee?
I think so. That one I'm a little. I've tried to learn that one, but I think
I'd be afraid to guess that. Yeah, I've added that to the TBR for sure.
Yeah.
You might be the perfect person because I'm reading Jade City, loving it. I have is it Grace of Kings, the first Ken Liu book? Dynasty. So I have that. Haven't read it, but a lot of people say I'll like that series well enough. And I haven't read. Is it Dan Simmons? Hyperion? No, not Dan Simmons.
Yeah.
Dan Simmons.
Dan Simmons. Yeah.
I have a feeling you read Hyperion and you've read Dandelion.
Back in my litfic days, I worked in Hyperion somewhere along the way because sci-fi. I was part of the acceptable stuff for me. That was like maybe in 2010. I read Hyperion. I can remember very little of it at this point. Like I remember liking it, but I remember loving book one. And book one is this very unique, like modern Canterbury Tales, like series of vignettes, like shorter stories, and it's like it was really involving. And I really loved book one. And I remember I liked book two, I remember, but just not got to the point where I was so invested that I needed to continue with the sequel series. So I never continued.
A lot of people said that. So, okay, for someone who really liked, let's say, the first Hyperion book, really liked the Dandelion Dynasty, presumably likes the Jade trilogy, the Grimo saga and stuff, because you kind of know what that's, you know it.
Yeah.
What would you, is there a book or a series that comes to mind to recommend?
Ooh,
I wonder.
Go back
and rewatch the rest of this. We've been gushing about a bunch of books, but
like Greenbone and Dandelion Dynasty are two series that I'm on my TBR this year that I have to get to.
Yeah.
So like I'm trying to figure out what would continue this run. Like I know people that love these types of things. Like I'm thinking like Jake Bishop loves a lot of those, and like GGK Guy Gavriel K does a lot of that sweeping historical fantasy stuff. I have yet to read any. GGK is I want to pick up.
I want to read him
some
too.
GGK.
He's Canadian. I have a bunch of a couple of his. I want to get to him as well.
I am not sure though.
You know what I'm going to recommend? So if you like the Dandelion Dynasty and the politics and the world and all that kind of stuff, I haven't read it, but I've listened to reviews and stuff. Hyperion, I haven't read, but sci-fi-ish, right? And urban fantasy and warring factions and again politics, and like I would steer him to Sun Eater. Like pick up a Sun Eater book and see if you like that. That'll be my go-to. It's somewhere that Ben and I overlap a lot. We overlap a lot, and we overlap a lot less. Well, we have a lot more in common than we do not in common, I think, right? For the most part.
Yeah. I think
GGK, try GGK. I'm going to try it too.
Yeah.
And then we can reconvene once we
we gotta keep reading more stuff. We've read so many because I think we're influenced by the
same people,
the same circle, and so
totally.
like we're reading the same things, and so and yeah, I want to just keep on finding stuff and see what we
100%.
disagree on. Like I'm looking forward to seeing what we disagree on.
I want to find
yeah.
what we disagree on, and I think the moment I see a review of yours or a wrap up where I go, no, that's not what I thought, I'm going to jump in and we're going to talk. We've been going close to 2 hours, so I think we're probably going to call it. And I think that we have enough to go on if we do this again. That'll be really fun. So I want to see where we diverge a little bit too. And we're going to continue reading all the same stuff, I'm sure, and we're going to overlap a ton. So next time we do this, we'll have a lot more to talk about as well and figure out what we liked, what we didn't, and chat a little bit more. I really appreciate you coming on. Maybe let people know where they can find you. The channel's Books with Benghis Kahn, right?
Yeah, it's click into it if you link it here. Yeah, it's hard to find it if you type in. Like I used to have this problem with the Library of Alexandria. If I tried to search,
everything else comes up. Alexandria comes up.
So if Benghis was just like this nickname I got during college, and I thought it was catchy. My last name's Kahn, spelled a little differently, so I thought it was catchy. But if you search for Books with Benghis Kahn, you will get automatically search for Genghis Khan stuff
100%
on YouTube. So
I'll link his channel. You can find it on mine. I'll link him and you can go show him some love. Yeah.
Oh yeah, and I'm on Goodreads too. Try to post reviews of everything I read and progress updates.
Better than I am on Goodreads, man. I'll tell you that. Any last words? Anything you want to say other than that? No.
Oh no, just thanks for having me on. This was fantastic. This is really why I joined BookTube, and just
that's awesome.
To, meet new people that share the same love of reading and the same types of books and chat about them. So thanks so much for inviting me.
Thanks for coming on, man. Yeah, and we'll do it again next time. I appreciate everyone who stopped by. If you're catching this on the replay, I appreciate that too. And hopefully we'll catch you in another maybe 2 weeks for another Fireside Friday. So I appreciate you guys being here. We'll see you soon. Bye.